want to present myself. My name is Marie-Ange Agnifo, and I'm the CEO of Leading Ladies Canada. I will be hosting today's discussion along with my colleague, Victoria. So Victoria will moderate and address any question you might have during the presentation. So a little bit about us, if I can just say, Leading Ladies Canada, we are a not-for-profit organization led by Black women with the mission to empower women and youth through leadership development initiative, mentorship program, entrepreneurship, community outreach initiative, educational events on relationship, financial literacy like today, health and fitness, and mental health awareness, just to name a few. Organization Leading Ladies Canada is committed to helping women improving their money management skill, living smart, and learn how to use credit wisely. So our mission is to create physical and virtual platform where women can join us to be empowered on a personal and professional level. So today's conversation will cover a number of financial literacy topics, such as spending, budgeting, living paycheck to paycheck, living on borrowing money, needs and wants, cutting costs, interest, credit cards, online shopping, real estate, life insurance, retirement. So I'll just ask my colleagues, Victoria, if you can help us to introduce our panelists and we can talk about money.
Thank you, Maria. So as Maria said, my name is Victoria. I am the Chief Nursing Officer of Leading Ladies Canada. So tonight, like Maria said, we're here to basically discuss money. So without further ado, we'll start with Danya Kandan. She is a financial coach, entrepreneur. She is based out of the Toronto or Greater Toronto area. We thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. Secondly, we have Aquaria Escarne. She is a life insurance and financial coach as well. She is from Virginia, I believe, Virginia, DC, I believe. Am I correct?
Washington, D.C., yeah.
Washington, okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this program tonight. We welcome. Next, we have Jatera Pittman. She is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. She is a financial coach. She is also an influencer online. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Next, we have the duo, the team. We have Meegan Lazambi and Enza Mendizo. They are both real estate, realtor entrepreneurs. They're also investment coaches, and they are based out of Burlington area. Thank you so much and welcome to the both of you.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Victoria. So let's talk about money, So I'm just gonna throw a big question here that I hope that we can discuss, like how to use our budget. Money sense, I want to know like the benefit of a spending plan, identify the difference between needs and wants, and if you can, highlighting the importance of emergency fund and living on own money or borrowing your money. So I'm just going to try a conversation. If you ladies can help us to explain, if we can start, that would be very good. I'll just ask Adonia if you can pretty much explain to us a little bit how budgeting.
Awesome. So, okay, let me put it this way. So when I usually tell my clients, like, we need to budget, a lot of people have this perspective that I'm going to tell them not to do this and not to do that because I don't want them to be spending money on things they want. But the point of a budget is not to limit them towards everything they want, it's for them to have a better understanding of where the money's going. Right? Because the issue with a lot of people is that spending money these days has become so much, easier. Like you go everywhere and then tap, $1,000 is gone, right? Like you don't even feel the money in your hands anymore. So a lot of people do end up spending a lot of money more than sometimes what they're making. And that puts them into a shortfall. And that causes a lot of issues because that's where the whole, borrowing money from credit cards and all those things comes up. And then we get into a lot of debt. And then you open your eyes and you're like, $20,000 of debt I have to pay? It's crazy. If we do have that proper budget where it shows, what is a necessity, like what are the necessity stuff that we need to pay for, and what are some of the wants that we have, and we have a proper budget where, like this amount of percentage goes towards, the living expenses. That amount of percentage goes towards the wants, right? We don't want to like literally remove everything, because some people think that they're not going to have the coffee every day anymore. But it's not like that. If you have that proper budget where it works out with where you're standing financially, you get to have it all. Like maybe not overspending certain things that is not necessity. But the whole point of a budget in my eyes is to just have a better idea where the money's going. If you don't plan for the money, money is going to plan for it itself, right? So that's how I would put a budgeting, the right budgeting plan as of, right? You want to have your expenses together, your total, basically your expenses in terms of the necessity expenses. You want to know how much money you're making. Then you want to have an understanding of how much money you want to put towards, savings and all those sort of things. And then you do the calculation, right? To make sure if you're overspending than what you're making or not. If you're overspending, then you need to make a change in your budget. If you're good and you're not overspending, then that means you're in a good position and you can continue with keeping track of money every month. That's what I would say. That's what I have to say.
Anybody else wants to add to that?
I'd like to add that I also have clients who think budgeting is a bad word or they hate to do it. So one of the things that I personally do, and it's sometimes helpful for individuals, is to budget with multiple bank accounts. So when you set up bank accounts for specific purposes, you use that account to pay those bills. So for example, I have a house fund, and that's mostly to cover my mortgage, my utilities, and anything involving expenses related to keeping my house and everything associated with it running. But I also have a vacation fund because I too believe it's not about minimizing how you want to live your life. It's more so prioritizing what you want to do in life. So I like to vacation a lot with my family, and we will set money aside every paycheck for that purpose. And my vacation fund is committed to paying for vacation expenses before we take the vacation. So if you're someone that has a bank or several banks that will allow you to open different accounts, you can do accounts that will cover grouped expenses. And then you still need to know how much you're spending though, because you need to know how much to fund these accounts. But I will take whatever I need to do something monthly, my mortgage, I'll add that up. And then I will divide that into biweekly payments so that every 2 weeks when I get paid, I'm making a contribution to each of my bank accounts. And then when the bills are due, I'm paying them from the account that they're for. So my mortgage comes out of the mortgage account, my vacations come out my vacation account, my cell phone and other technology and stuff comes out of a different account. So that is how I like to budget, because sometimes people are more comfortable with having limits and not necessarily dealing with the nitty gritty of the totals. So I always say you have to know your numbers, because you need to know how much money you're allocating to these different accounts, and it shouldn't exceed how much you make. But once you have the account set up and you are grouping your expenses that way, it's also helpful to track them, because then you only have to make sure that those 3 expenses came out of the proper account and the others came out of the other account. And if you have automatic contributions and your payments are automatically made too, then it's not as much of tallying as, an Excel spreadsheet budget kind of way. So just another way to budget if you like to think big numbers or to think in chunks.
Thank you so much. I like that, but that can be confusing as well. So I'm wondering, you have your money that you put in yourself for traveling. I love traveling as well. But what about emergency fund? So you have to save some money for your traveling, save some money for your emergency fund, save, and after that, if you just have one paycheck. So how are you managing all this? So I'd like to know more.
Yeah, so I have one bank account that all the money goes into. So my paycheck is going to one bank account, but I'm not using that bank account to pay bills. I'm only using that money to receive income. And then I set up automatic transfers to the other bank accounts based on how much money I need in those accounts. So I'll set it up obviously after my paycheck payday. So the paycheck goes in, and then the amount that I need to cover half of my mortgage will go to the mortgage account. The amount I need to cover my cell phone will go to the cell phone and technology account, and then the vacation, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't have to have a lot. Like for most people, they have 3, maybe 4 max, but they group their expenses into normally 1 to 2 categories: essential and discretionary. So essential are things you have to have. You have to have somewhere to live, you have to have food to eat, and you have to have utilities, right? We all like to have running water and lights. So that might be, if you don't want to do too many accounts, you can do an essential bank account, and then you can have a discretionary bank account. And discretionary could be the fun stuff: going to the movies, how much you spend to eat out, expenses that fluctuate and they're not fixed. And so that's what I do like, is my mortgage is fixed. My utilities are pretty much the same every month. I try to set a gas budget. So things like that, you can plan for, and you can figure out an amount that you can afford. And then the discretionary is where you have the flexibility, because you don't have to always spend the money allocated for discretionary. But that's an emergency fund. It should be a part of your budget. For me, I budget how much I save. I budget how much I invest. When you treat savings and investing like a bill, you're more likely to do it. And that's why I tell people to do it when they get paid, and not when all the money's been spent to pay everyone else.
Thank you so much. And I just want to know more, Victoria, can you just elaborate about it and how to get out of debt, if you're living paycheck by paycheck?
Yeah, I think what these ladies said was definitely great. And I focus on the actual debt-free journey, so getting out of debt. And a lot of times, the real problem is that we aren't making enough money. Like we might not be, spending how we should. We might be overspending, but at a certain point, there's only so much money that you can cut out of your budget, and you will hit a ceiling where you need to increase your income so you can pay down that debt. So that's the first thing you need to do. Like once you start cutting those expenses, like that can take a month to do, to like cut your cable bill and switch to Netflix, or to start commuting instead of driving. And then after you cut all that, you might have an extra, let's say $250 to go towards paying extra towards your debt, but that will still be a long process. So increasing your income is the number one way. When you are on a debt-free journey, if you're living paycheck to paycheck or not. And I say if you're trying to increase your income, the number one thing that you need to do is look at the skills that you have in your job. Whatever skills you're doing at your job, you can go and apply those outside of your job and monetize that so you can start creating income
you're breaking up
you
a bit.
actually own, because you do those every day. You can take them outside of the job.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up a lot, so I don't know if
Jateria, you're breaking up a lot.
Your debt.
Okay, so we're just gonna ask if any other woman can. Yeah, so if any other woman can add on this, I know you guys all have expertise on that, so it'll be great to just elaborate more.
Yeah, like I can speak to a little bit of this. When I look at it from the self-employed perspective, like Enza and I are both self-employed, we're realtors, and I follow a lot of the same practices that you guys are speaking of, like having multiple bank accounts. And even like on my business side, I have multiple bank accounts as well. And I'm, making sure I'm paying my taxes quarterly so that I don't leave it till the end. In Canada here, we have to pay HST. So that's, another tax we have to pay. So just kind of like paying as I go rather than paying those expenses kind of at the end. And just like living within my means, right? So looking at how much I do make, and then, our family, making sure that all of our like housing expenses, our, food, clothing, like all the expenses for the family are really, covered out of like the household, the family income.
And I really love what Jateria was saying. I know she was breaking up, but I really love what she was saying, because what she was saying is, at the end of the day, when you have bad debt, and so I'll just reiterate, and I hope I'm quoting you correctly, Jateria, because you were breaking up, but you were making such a really good point. The first step to eliminate bad debt is to sort of pare down your expenses. But what she was saying is that can only go so far. The reality is then you have to increase your income. And that's the reason why I left corporate. So I was working in corporate. I was very burnt out. I was working really hard. I was making all of my targets, but I was not getting paid. I mean, I would only make the maximum, which was 2 to 3%. That was if you were exceeding your targets. So I was capped to how much money I could make. And so then I had to find a way to actually make more money if I wanted to get out of debt and then build for my future.
Yeah.
But
And she also talked about utilizing the skills you use in your job to make extra money on the side. So that's really helpful too, because she said that's stuff you already know how to do because you do it every day. So using your skills to do things virtually or for other clients privately.
But for the person who lives paycheck to paycheck, though, how, what's important for that person if they want to buy that house later on, or if they have a big project in the future? Is it better for them to pay down their debts first and save, or save first and then pay down debt?
I'm going to jump on this one. So I actually get that question a lot. See, the thing is with a lot of people that want to buy a house and stuff, and I've come across people that had a structure first, then buy a house, or they bought a house and then they figure out a structure. So with a lot of people, I think we're focused on so much on just having the saving account, paying off debt and buying products. We don't have a strategy or a plan. So that's something that I stress out a lot, even on my Instagram. I'm sure you have seen it for those who follow. It's having a structure and a plan where everything is in order. So paying out debt is not the first thing, right? You want to go based on the structure, right? Based on the structure, first is to make sure that you have that proper protection. Then is to make sure that you have the proper budget, emergency fund. So emergency fund, the third step is paying off debt. So emergency fund is actually before paying off debt. And I'll tell you why. What most of the people do is they don't have a proper emergency fund. They have nothing saved. So they focus on paying off credit card, paying off credit card, paying off credit card. Okay, let's say you did pay off your credit card. What if tomorrow something happens and you need $1,000 and you've got no savings? What are you going to do again? You use that credit card again. So you're back into debt. And this is the vicious cycle a lot of people are stuck with, and that needs to change. How is that going to change? With having that proper emergency fund, which is having that 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved. But if something was to go wrong, losing a job, an emergency coming up, you have that emergency fund to use. Then you focus on paying off your debt. So saving for an emergency fund is first.
So that's really good to say that, but at the same time, I just want to know that the fact that the cost of living, like right now, is really big. So we want to save, but at the same time, we have those credit cards, like you say, but we want to pay our debt. So how you advise your clients on this way of now with the pandemic, with the cost of living that is really rising?
So exactly what Jateria was saying, and I know Enza was mentioning it as well. A lot of our people are stuck with one source of income. One source of income is not enough anymore. The word has changed, and people need to understand that 3 sources of income or more is what is necessary to make a living here. It's not a luxury thing anymore. It's a necessity, right? So that's number one. Another thing I would say is, in order for them to make a change in their life financially, they need to change their mindset first, right? Because it needs to change here first. And this changing here needs to be, I need to pay myself first. So even if you have expenses, if we don't pay ourselves first, we're going to be running after money and working for our money for the rest of our lives. That needs to change. oh, I have to pay off my debt, and if anything is left, then I'm going to save, is not going to change our life. So if we don't have enough income to save, we need to make more money. We have
so
to.
your paycheck you have, so how much you need to pay yourself first? You know, I know some people say, oh, maybe I should put 20% or 10% or 30%. How much you need to save or to put yourself to pay for paying yourself first?
Minimum 10%, minimum 10, either 10, 15%, 20% or more. But if we can't pay 15%, 10%, right? And I'm sure if people do have a proper budget. So like there's a rule called 50, 30, 20 rule, right? So 50% goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards your wants, 20% goes towards your saving, right? That's like the general rule everybody uses. So for them to have that proper structure, they need to have a plan, first of all. And then when you have a plan, it follows along with everything else of how much you need to save, how much you need to spend, how much income needs to be. So I feel like a lot of people don't know how much money they need to make to have the life they want. So we need to calculate that first. And then we need to come up with ideas and ways of making that income to support the plan or support the dreams or support the goal, right? So I think that's something that definitely needs to change. So even if a lot of people say that I don't have money, you don't have money, you need to make more money. Because you paying yourself first should be the most important thing. You're working hard for your money. Okay, if that $30 phone bill has more value than yourself paying yourself, then we're very wrong, right? We're in the wrong place. We need to change that.
I think it's also, I know it's hard sometimes to hear that you need to make more money, but that's normally what people need. And a lot of times they don't realize it until they're constantly struggling to keep up or they're struggling to pay their bills. And so I don't want to just flippantly say make more money because some people may not know how to do that. So we started the conversation about using the skills that you use in your day-to-day job outside of work and using that as an opportunity to make more money. But sometimes it also requires that you get additional education or that you learn a skill, right? Because all of us probably have hobbies that we like, and we're not sure if it would thrive as a business, but it could. And sometimes the best thing to do is to try that hobby as a business and see what happens. But you do need to be passionate about it. If you need to learn more skills to make more money, consider certification programs or look at what libraries may be offering, community colleges. Like, what resources do you have access to that are the lowest entry, right? Because again, if you're already living paycheck to paycheck, the goal isn't to make you go into debt to learn a skill so you can make more money. But sometimes you do need to sacrifice time or education or something so that you can get that additional income. And there are a lot of free programs out there, or there may be someone who's willing to mentor you to learning a new skill so that the income can follow. So you're going to have to, at some point, sacrifice time or income, and maybe someone will finance you learning a new skill, depending on how you go about getting the support to do it. But then there are also companies, right? Like, look at Uber Eats, and I'm not sure what's big in Canada, but there's just a lot of these companies that will allow you to work for them on a flexible schedule. And even with COVID, grocery delivery has been huge. Just utilizing part-time work where you're working on the time that you do have and using that to make additional income. Now, I will say, when you make additional income, you do need to plan for taxes, but it does still give you additional income. And I don't think anyone should be afraid to make more money just because of the tax implication, because that's the craziest reason not to make more money, right?
I love what you're saying, because every year, can I tell you something? I have this thing with my accountant, and I'm always complaining about how much tax I'm paying, and he's like, Enza, it's a good thing that you have to pay all this tax.
Yeah, you made more money.
So, and also, if I might add, because Aquinia and Danya, I love what you guys are saying. And so I want to add two things, if I may. So one is about what Danya spoke about, which is mindset. And I think it has to start there. for me, I was a single mom. I was struggling to get by. I was barely getting by for many, many, many years. I know what that's like. And I had to snap myself out of that. I had to understand that more was waiting for me and that I could have more. And I really embarked on a journey of self-empowerment and mindset. So YouTube is full of great people who will help you believe in yourself. And I think the other thing is most people never start because they think they have to do something monumental. So I actually brought this beautiful little thing. Everyone can start here. So this is a silver coin. Silver coin, energetically, this can change your life. It's $20 to buy an ounce of silver coin from Sprott Canada or from any precious metal dealer. And this, just buying one, you are now an investor. So many people I find don't start because they don't know where to start, or they think they have to make these massive grand gestures. But you can literally, instead of gifting your children or your friends these knickknacks and these things that they don't need, or buying things for yourself that you really don't need, buy a silver coin, change your life and the life of the people around you. And then it makes you energetically shift because now you're actually an investor. It can be that simple.
Wow,
Thank you so much.
that's beautiful. That's beautifully said. And it just starts small. You don't have to be big. And I think that's the fear. That's the one of the pitfalls of money, where people
Yes.
think that investment, oh my goodness, I need to get an ETF funds or SP 500 and do this and put $10,000 in. I don't have that money.
Exactly.
No, it's actually, it's a mindset that you can actually really start really small
Right.
and make it and think big along the process. It's a process.
It is a process, and
It is.
it's the energy shift that comes from this, because now you're
Yes.
starting and you're signaling to the universe, I want a different life than where I'm at. And I know
Yes.
people can get there because I did it. I changed my life completely. And it wasn't without struggle, but the important thing is you get there, and I'm still getting there, and I'm still trying to get there. Do you see what I'm trying to say? But
Yes.
if you don't
Yes.
start, you can't get anywhere.
Yes. Somebody said in the chat, we need the link to the silver coin. We need birthday gifts.
Yes, Sprott money.
I think that's a really good idea to start doing that for people or ourselves. Pay ourselves first.
Yeah.
And yes, I love that. But then speaking of investing, okay, what is the best approach to the person? Okay, for me, for example, and I can definitely relate to you, Enza. I'm also a single mom of 3. And again, I'm working hard through corporate. I'm making a little bit side money elsewhere. But, you know, what is your approach other than the mindset shift, the mindset change? What is your approach? And this question is to all of you guys. What do you say to your clients who come to you and say, you know, I'm a single mom. I don't think I can do this, but I want to do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have no money. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm literally living on borrowed money. I'm literally living off of my credit cards and like Adania said, the vicious cycle.
Yeah.
What do you say to get them out of that cycle?
So for me, the way that I started is I was able to save some money to buy a house. And when I was able to buy a house, the house went up in value. That's how I started my investment. Then I refinanced that property and I was able to take out some equity and buy a small little property. I used the profit from that house to send my daughters to university. So when people say, because I know in real estate investing, you know, people will show up and they'll be like, oh, I have all of these houses or I have all of these doors. They call them doors in real estate. And it can be really overwhelming. I remember going to these places and people were talking like that. And I literally had one door, you know what I mean? Literally one. And so it's like, it's important just to start. And there could be like, we have these great people here that help people to sort of budget themselves with a goal that possibly they can have home ownership. You know, that might be like a first goal for people, and how like their programs, like when Meegan and I first got started, there's programs that are called like rent to own, where you can buy a property from someone and you can rent it for like 2 to 3 years. But the whole goal of that renting is to then buy that house out at the end. So they have these programs of home ownership that can make it possible, because it's like a few steps tiered to get there. Does that make sense for women who don't even have the money yet to fully get there, right?
And yeah, the thing that comes to mind for me is that, Danya, you spoke about, and it really kind of hit home for me, that people need like 3 incomes to live right now. Like that really hit home for me. Like that is shocking for me. And, when we think about housing, because like the price of housing in Canada has gone up significantly, right? I think we can all say that if we're renting, if we're homeowners, the value of our homes have gone up. And, we really need to get creative. And I think it's like thinking outside of the box, and it may be not how our parents did it. It's like thinking about, okay, well, if I want to own a home, how can I do it? And I remember when I left university, I actually seriously considered like buying a home with good friends of mine, because we all needed to live together. And it was like, we would just buy the house together and live and, have that mortgage account and pay all the house bills. And maybe it's that, maybe it's looking at, living with another family, buying a house together as a first step. And then, 5 years down the road, you can then move up to your own home. Or
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
House hacking.
Yeah. Or what we do as well, like we teach people how to convert a single family home into a 2-unit. So in other words, you buy a house that already has that secondary unit set up in the basement, right?
Mhm.
Now that money can go to offset your mortgage or your expenses. So I love what Meegan's saying, that be very creative. And sometimes people just don't know that these options exist for them.
Yeah, that's really good. I would like to know, Jiteri, if you can, I don't know if your internet connections is good now. We're talking about cutting costs. How, as a financial coach, you explain to your client how to cut those costs.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I do want to tap into what Enza just said about the creative ways to, purchase a home and increase income. So I'm actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now, but I'm in Tulsa because I am doing a program that's for remote workers and entrepreneurs, and they actually paid me to move here, and they also provide a stipend to me every single month. Or I could have received $10,000 to purchase a home here in Tulsa, and that could have been an investment property.
That's good.
Yes.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
That's
That's
awesome.
amazing. Yes.
Wow.
So there are
What?
many programs that are like that. They're remote working programs for people to be able to move places and have the money to make the move and have the money to purchase. My background is actually in the mortgage industry. I've been a loan officer and a loan processor, doing mortgage loans for the past 5 years now. So we definitely have to be creative when it comes to purchasing a home, and house hacking is like the way to go. It's absolutely the way to go. I think it should be everyone's first purchase of a property, and then they should move to purchasing a property for themselves, because that first property that you purchase that's a house hack will allow you to have more income. So then when you want to actually purchase a home that you want to live in forever, or even 5 or 10 years, you will have more income to qualify for that home. So I definitely think we have to be more creative, and we have to attend sessions like this, because a lot of times we do not know. If we don't ask, we won't know. Like, we have to get out there and learn, because literally everything that you want, it's a resource out here for you.
Yeah, I love that. And to just add what you guys say, something that people usually don't know, you don't need to always go outside, to get something done. You can make a second or third income from your home, like, for example, international students. Usually they come in Canada, and it's a way of making money, grabbing usually I do that, one is international student or two, that just increase your income,
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't need to be outside. You're still in your home and still with your family, because I'm a mother as well and a wife with 3 kids, and it's allowed to do. So you don't always want to be outside and do stuff. You're going
And
to
make,
create
yeah.
income home.
Yes.
So you can
Yes.
just be like, okay, I have a basement that is empty. Why is empty? Why are you waiting for those visitors to come to visit you once in a year? You have a room that's sitting there.
During a pandemic. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Make
So
the
just
money,
like
girl.
create,
Yes.
you know, having rented for students, international student, co-op students is always a way of increasing your income. Thank you
Yes.
so much. So
Amazing.
let's talk about investment and real estate. And I don't know there in the States, but here in Canada, it's crazy. The market is crazy.
Insane. Yes.
Insane.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to hear more, like for a
Marianne, sorry to cut you off, but I
Yeah.
actually want to know more about the house hacking bit. And I don't know if we do this in Canada. I didn't know about that world at all. And so that's actually interesting for our viewers, I think, as well, to talk about real estate, house, and how can we incorporate house hacking into this?
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband and I house hacked most of our marriage, interestingly enough, because there were certain times where my job would send me overseas and he would stay and we would see each other, but he would take on a roommate. He'd move in a coworker who just moved to town and didn't know the city yet and was going to use our house as their starter. So they would stay in the guest bedroom for a few months, then they would look around for where they want to live, and then they would move. But some of his friends would stay a year. So that's 1 year that someone paid towards our mortgage. And that was money we didn't need. I mean, we were able to afford our home without them, but then we could just apply their money to the mortgage and have more to save. So you can rent out a room, you can rent out a basement. You can definitely do Airbnb sometimes. I know some friends who have really well located homes and they will move out for a few days and stay with a friend or family member and allow Airbnb to cover the cost for a week or 5 days. And when you do short-term rentals, you actually can sometimes make more money in a week than you would in a month. So that could be a great way to make income at smaller times, you know, for less time, but more money. Obviously, you have to accommodate your space so that you can bring in these people, whether it be for a short-term lease for 6 months to a year or a week out of the month, but at least you can plan for it. You can advertise for it too, and open up to, you know, some people will look within their church. Some people will look within their friend circle. If you know someone who's shopping for a house and they've been impacted because they're putting bids and not winning, right? So they thought they only needed 3 months and they realized the lease is running out on their apartment and they still don't have a home. Those are people that you could potentially move in and house hack with them as well. And it's beneficial to everybody. So just some things to think about. And we do that a lot in the States. And I can't believe it, but again, like at least 3 or 4 years of our marriage, and I've been married 13 years, we've had someone else living in our basement or living in another room and contributing to our mortgage.
Yeah, I like that. And I think me too, it's been like 11 years of marriage, and I don't know how many international students that are close to my house. But
good.
It's a way, you know, to have an extra income and to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So another thing that I really want to talk about, credit card. And how many credit cards you guys ladies think people can have? You know, I know you talk about many banks. So, you know, that tendency of having many banks, does that mean we need all those banks to give us credit card? Or do we need 1 credit card, 2 credit card? I would love to know.
Well, since you mentioned my strategy on multiple bank accounts, I think credit cards depends on what you can responsibly hold, right? So I do believe it's important to establish credit as early as you can. And a lot of parents will give responsible children authorized credit cards or make them authorized users on their credit cards. I don't know if that's allowed in Canada, but it is allowed in the US. Once your children reach a certain age, you can give them a card on your account and they can make small purchases, pay those off, and build credit in their teens. in a lot of cases. So by the time they're looking for a house in their 20s, they've already established some type of credit. If you are not in a position to do that because your credit isn't strong, then I recommend you start with a secure credit card. In the US, you can actually go to a bank or a credit union. You can ask for a secure credit card, which you will prepay $500 to $1,000 on it. And then you will only be able to spend what you have on the secure credit card. So up to 500 or up to 1,000. But both of these options will allow you to start to establish credit and using credit. But I personally, I don't recommend you have too many credit cards unless you can pay them all off. And I don't recommend you collect credit cards for points or all that. I think you should collect credit cards for what you need. So I recommend you have different brands. So don't just get Visa, because if you go somewhere that doesn't take Visa, you won't be able to use your card, right? So get a Visa, get a MasterCard, or, you know, at least 2 different brands or processors, that's what you call them. And then whatever you can afford to pay off each month. If you're starting over or starting out, I think 1 to 2 is more than enough. And then also keep in mind fees. So some credit card companies are charging annual fees. I do not really believe in paying annual fees unless you can justify that the benefit you're getting as a customer is covering the fees. For example, there are some Amex cards, they will cover 200 in baggage fees a year and give you access to the lounges when you travel domestically and internationally, which comes with free food, free drinks, right? The 200 on the luggage alone is most of the fee, right? Plus all these other free things. If you're spending or utilizing the benefits, right, then the fees are paying for themselves. But if you're not utilizing all the benefits, you need to reevaluate, do you really need that card? And I have actually canceled cards because the fee was not worth it to me. And it hasn't jeopardized my credit because I've maintained strong, long relationships with the credit card companies I have, because how long you have a card, how long you have positive credit history is just as important as how many credit cards you have.
Thank you so much. Donia, you wanna add anything on that? And for not just for new people, but you know, entrepreneurs with big family or organizations, like what you do? How many credit cards?
Okay, I think I would agree with her as well. So like when it comes to credit cards, you need to be responsible. Like some people know themselves better, like they know if they have access to too much, what's going to happen through experiences. So same here. I don't advise anybody to have too many credit cards. But I think one thing I would like to mention about credit cards that a lot of people don't mention, and it does affect credit score over time, is how much you spend from your credit card. So because a lot of people think that, oh, I have $5,000 credit limit, so I'm going to spend it all. So it doesn't make sense for you to do that. You need to be careful, because only if you choose to use only 30% of the credit available to you is a smart thing to do. If you are spending more than 30%, that still can afford your credit score. Like this was something that, you know, when I got here, because I haven't been in Canada for a long time, it's been like 6 years and a half. So when I got here and they gave me a credit card when I was 18, they didn't explain any of this to me. So I remember like I spent a lot of money on my credit card. I had no idea before getting into the industry, of course. And after I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I had no clue that this matters, like how much you actually spend on your credit card. I thought I can use everything that, you know, all the credit that I have. So this is something a lot of people don't pay attention to. So only 30%, use only 30% of your credit card available, not more than that. Try to not do it more than that. Another thing that gets a lot of people into credit card debt is that they spend the money they don't have. Don't spend the money you don't have. So if you want to use your credit card and, you know, create a good credit for yourself, yes, that makes sense. But you can't go spend like $1,000 on something that you really want just because you want it and you don't really need it, but then you didn't even have that money in your checking card. I think like what smart people usually do is they spend the money that they have on their checking card, like checking or saving on their credit card, then they pay the credit card. Like that's what I do. And I think that has helped me to thankfully not have any credit card debt at all. But before I used to spend whatever I wanted, and I did get into credit card debt, and it's not fun. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But that would be my main point to kind of point out.
Enza and Meegan?
I would love to add something here, and then I want you to add something that you're doing with your children.
Okay.
But I think it's important too. I love what Danya said, that she said when she was first given a credit card, no one ever explained anything to her.
Yeah.
And I think for many of us, especially that are mothers, we don't understand the impact that we have in training the next generation. And sometimes, like, we might make a sacrifice and maybe we won't see the full benefit of our sacrifice, but we're changing the next generation and we're breaking that generational curse and lines through our families. And that's really huge and very, very important. And I think in school, they don't teach children this. And so it's very important for us to teach our children so that when they become adults, they're not floundering and wondering what to do. And while Danya was speaking, like, it reminded me of something that Meegan's doing with her children. She has two beautiful little ones, and how she's training them to manage their money. So I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just start, like, each of my children have a bank. So my children are, Madison is 9, and then Carter, my son, is 7. So they're still very, very young. But I'm really starting very, very young with them. So each of them have a bank account. It's in my name, but it's, you know, allocated with their name on it. And I do take time to, like, open up my internet banking and show them how much money they have in their bank account, like, every so often, like, not often, but we do talk about it regularly. But the one thing, like, so Enza and I do flips on the side. So one of our passions is we buy distressed homes, we renovate them beautifully and make them into wonderful family homes that then families buy, okay, and move into. And we make a little bit of money here and there on those.
And sometimes we make a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but, like, one of the things, like, it's really a family affair, right? So it's Enza, myself, my husband, and my kids come along too. So with our last flip, I made a deal with my kids. I said, okay, each of you will earn 10% of the profit we make on this home for coming with me. They had to help clean out the house. They had to help clean it when we were cleaning it. And, like, I just give them tasks and they whine and moan and they're complaining the whole time. But it's amazing to see, like, my daughter will just randomly say, so when are we selling the Watt house and when do I get my profit from that? So, like, I'm just sort of, like, educating them on the business, right? And, like, a business that, for me, like, I've been investing in real estate now since I left university. So for about 10 years. And I have to tell you, it's been the one thing that has consistently made money for me and my family. Like, I look at my RSPs and, like, my mutual funds and my, you know, stocks, and I make minimal returns there. And I feel like most of it is going in fees. But in real estate, that's where my family has really, you know, been able to make leaps in our wealth, you know, and yeah, that's, I guess, just what we're doing with our family.
But just to get back to what you were saying, Enza, you know, on a personal level, you know, with my kids too, because it's true, in terms of generational curse, coming from a Haitian family, my parents never taught us about money. They just said, like, you know, save as much money as you can and just don't. But the thing is, you know, what I do with my kids, and I've got 3 under the age of 8, what I do is that, you know, when we go to Walmart, they're like, oh, Mom, I want this new thing. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll buy it for you, but it's borrowed money. So you have to pay it back, but you have to give me a little bit more. So if it's $20, you got to give me $23. And they're like, oh, no. They're so quick to say, you know what? No, we'll save up. So it kind of helps them think, okay, you know what? I'd rather save it for myself and pay it for myself. So now you can see Jackson coming up to me. He's like, okay, so what can I do for you, Mom? Like, what do you want me to sweep the floor so that I can get my allowance? You know, it's really interesting how, you know, and my parents, you know, to be honest, you know, God bless them, but we were never raised that way. It took me a long time. Like Danya said, yeah, it's,
Yeah, I think it's important to be a good example. And I try to tell people, who may not have a lot of money right now, or maybe they're older, closer to retirement, and they're just now starting to learn good financial habits, is that you can still leave a free legacy of education and mindset. And telling these stories of where you used to be and where you are is just as inspiring than leaving $1 million trust fund. Of course, we would all love to leave $1 million trust fund, but my dad picked up so much from his grandfather just by going with him in Brooklyn, New York to collect rent at the rental properties he had. My dad was a kid. He didn't fully understand my grandfather owns these properties, but he saw him collecting rent and him giving back to the community. My great grandfather was super involved in his own community. And when people were in need, he also saw him giving money to them. He would ask people, are you okay? And if they needed food, if they needed cash, he would give. So my dad grew up to be a very giving person, but also someone who was like, I want to own as much real estate as my grandfather, right? And in New York, real estate is very expensive. And for him to be able to own more than one property in New York City is like unheard of, right? And a Black man and from Panama. So like, this is where being present and showing your children even the things you can't explain because you don't think they understand, they do. Kids are sponges. They will see what you're doing. My son is 10. My oldest son is 10. I have 2 boys. But I remember I used to write the grocery list with him. We would go into the store, and there would come a point where I would try to put cookies in the shopping cart, and he would say, Mom, that's not on the grocery list. And so then you have to hold yourself accountable because you're like, oh yeah, it's not. So then I would be like, well, can we write it now? Or why don't I let you get something so I can get something? And he's like, no, Mom, that's not what we discussed. So so they're watching, they're learning, and they will replicate when the opportunity comes and they're in that same situation. So just keep doing what you're doing. Even if you cannot leave this huge financial legacy, you can leave good financial habits. And so I want to share that.
I know I really want to talk about real estate and add a lot in real estate, but I just want to finish this part of the budgeting and money on online shopping. I know with the pandemic, with the situation, we stay home and we just do a lot of online shopping. So I just want to know from you, lady, what advice usually, like Jeteria, what advice usually you give to your clients, with all this spending part of just go online and get like Amazon. I know Amazon, some people, like you have Amazon every day, deliver something to your house is insane.
I know for me that with the pandemic, that definitely caused me to shop online a lot more. But I had to get really intentional with what I wanted. Like, why was I shopping online? What was I searching for? What did I really want? I had to dig deeper when I would be scrolling on Amazon or trying to find something just to purchase it or just to find a deal just because I was bored. So for me, what I had to do was I had to build a space that was intentional so I could be happy in what I was in. So I would stop looking for outside things to make me happy by online shopping. So one way that I did that is I love to travel. That's part of my business. And I love going to different bars and like, especially tropical places in the different bars when I travel. So I decided to put a bar cart into my home. So it would be like, I would start purchasing like shot glasses, or maybe I would like purchase like a wine opener. And I realized I keep buying these things because what I really want is I want a piece of what I don't have anymore, and that is travel. So I was intentional about going ahead and like, hey, you can purchase these things. You can put yourself on a budget. You can put some ideas together on Pinterest for this bar cart, and you can purchase that. So then it would stop the spending because I wasn't being truthful with myself on why I was spending. But then once I realized why, I was able to, become self-aware, realize that, put myself on a budget, get what I wanted and stop that spending. So that has definitely helped me, because now I'm way more intentional with my spending because I'm more aligned with myself and my values.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I like that because I know I shop a lot as well, Amazon. It's something that is so amazing nowadays. But let's talk about real estate now. Like, just let's focus on that. And I don't know, for some of you, maybe the first house, but I'm talking about now for investor, people that want to go to the second, the third. You know, those ones, they don't want to limit themselves to the one, and they want to invest to make real estate the investment. Like, can you just explain to us more? And I know this part of a topic, Victoria, she's on it so much, she's waiting. So Victoria, go jump and take us to the next level.
I am obsessed with, you know, one, I'm obsessed with women making money, but also investing and into themselves. And owning a home is an investment for yourself. And so that's why I have Enza and Meegan there, because I've actually been following you for about 3 years now, and showing your, yes, and that's why you're here tonight, because I said, you know what, this is a great opportunity to learn more about your business and what led you, you know, just a short introduction of what led you to this side of the business and investing in real estate, really, and how, as Meegan was saying earlier, it's helped her family grow. So I want to hear more about that, and then I have questions like crazy.
Well, I'll just say quickly, and I just want to be really mindful of the time, but for me, the reason I got into real estate is because I lost a lot of money in the stocks. And like most women, I felt that I needed to consult with a financial expert who knew better than me on how to manage my money. So I was investing in the stock market, and I had a so-called financial expert that was investing my money. And basically I lost it all. Seriously, I lost a lot of money. And then I remember watching, it was CNBC. I used to watch Susie Orman. She's still everywhere. I love her because she's so straight up, and she really aligns with the way like I like to be. Yeah. And she said, you know, right now, wherever you are, get up, run in front of the mirror. And I'm like, what is she talking about? So she's like, I know you're not doing it. Run and go look in front of the mirror. And I felt like she was talking to me. So I did. I ran into my bathroom, and I could hear her because I had the volume up. And she said, that person looking back at you is the best financial advisor you will ever find. Follow your instincts and your gut, and you will never be wrong. So the reason I got involved into real estate is because real estate has created the most legacy wealth of all generations. It's created the most billionaires, the most millionaires, and it's trusted. People understand it. And this is what I love about it. I can explain to a 10-year-old, maybe a 14-year-old, what are the fundamentals that we look for, and how do we assess a good real estate investment? It's that simple. So I tell all my clients all the time, here's the fundamentals, because they'll say to me, do you think this is a good thing? And I'll be like, this is the fundamentals. What do you think? And then I'll tell you what I think, because I train them to empower themselves, because it's that simple. The fundamentals of understanding real estate are not difficult, right? You have some basic expenses. Here's the income that I think I can make in this property that I know because I've seen it trending in this market. Does my income, is it more than my expenses? If the answer is yes, and this is a good property in a good location, then we proceed forward, because now this is a business that's carrying itself.
Yeah, but another question for you is more as okay, you have your first house. Now you want to invest and get to your second or your third. So probably maybe the bank think you're not making enough to go to the second or the third.
Exactly.
So the bank doesn't want to give you a mortgage. But we know as investors, you don't need to stay with the bank. So can you just tell us more about, you know, those B lenders, those C lenders, those private investors that can, you know, explain to you and give you what the bank cannot give you anymore? Because I think usually people focus on the bank. Oh, the bank can't, okay, I'm going to go 2, 3, 4 jobs so I can get the money. But in investment, the way I understand it now, you don't always need your money. You can get some people money, like you and Meegan, you know. But hey, can you explain to us more?
Yeah, so one of the first things we do once we've had like an initial consultation with our clients is to really send them to, well, we work with a mortgage broker that specializes specifically in investment properties. And why working with a mortgage broker is so important is because not only like for, I'll just talk for here in Canada, but they have access to all of the big five banks. So like the CIBC, the RBC, the TD, the Scotia. Then they also have access to all the credit unions. So there's many different credit unions in the different communities. And then there's also other options, which are like the B lenders, which would, you know, they're for more creative financing options. Like I use them because I'm self-employed. And a lot of the times the big five banks don't like people like me who are self-employed. They will want someone with G4 income. But that's really the first step. It's like you get we call it getting pre-qualified. And, you know, when you have your first home and your primary residence, for 98% of our clients, that's going to be the source of income for their down payment for their very first rental property.
Yes.
So you're going to take some of the equity that you have in your existing home and use that as your down payment for your next property. Okay. And then just like Enza said, that little bit of interest that you're going to pay on that home equity you're taking out of your home is going to be covered by the rent you're taking in on that investment property. So you're not going to, it's not going to be a negative impact on your, we'll call it family budget. It's just going to be part of the economics of that next investment property.
But the thing is, but with the, you know, the whole point of having a rental property is to have positive cash flow.
Right.
But with the real estate market going up and up and up, I don't know about that area in the Burlington area, you know, us living in Ottawa, it's insane. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, how can we guarantee, I mean, there's no guarantees in anything, but how can you ensure that there is at least some sort of cash flow coming out of that rental property?
Yeah, because we're doing all of these numbers and factors before you put in an offer and buy that property. Like, you know what I mean? Sorry, go ahead.
And I think to answer your question, so yes, you're right. Because the real estate has gone up, if we only buy a single family home, it's going to be tough. And that's why if you've been following us, so many of the properties that we featured, they're at least 2-unit properties, because now we're getting 2 income rents from one single family home. And then that's enough to boost the rent high enough to offset your expenses and create a cash flow.
And something that I think I can add up that I'm learning as well in this investment world, you don't need to look for something new. It's all better to get something older, you do renovation, you fix it. So that give you more money.
You can force value for sure. And that's something that Meegan and I, we really love to do. And a lot of people, what they'll do, because in real estate, there's what's called active strategies and passive strategies. Okay. So what we do is we renovate and flip, and it's a very active strategy, and it's a way to add income to your household. So then you can go out and buy more investment properties, right? But also what people will do is they will buy a distressed property like Marie-Ange is saying, and then they will add value. Okay. Then they will refinance that property, pull the equity out, right? And now they have the rent that's covering that house, and they keep using that same equity now, and they can buy something else. So that's a real strategy. That's what's called the BRRRR. So buy, you renovate, you rent, and then refinance.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask the financial coach, you guys really think that we need to invest in real estate, or is it other way, better way to make some money? You know, let's go make this conversation a little bit.
So I want to introduce commercial real estate. I can't speak to the Canadian market, but I did start out in the US in rentals. We rented our first house. I do believe that's where a lot of people should start. And it's not just because it's something you already have been able to acquire, but it's also easier if you're going to self-manage. And what I mean by that is, for my husband and I, we had lived in our house a few years before we rented it. We knew what the quirks were. We knew what the anticipated future maintenance was and the things that we were going to expect as landlords. You can't predict the future 100%, but you can have an idea of whether or not this house is going to require a lot of additional capital. And then when my job sent me overseas to live abroad, so we rented the house while we were there, because we bought at the height of 2006 to 2008. So we were underwater and we couldn't sell it for the value that we needed to cover the mortgage. So sometimes you will rent your property out of necessity because you can't sell it for what it's worth. We actually still have that property because since we rented it, they've built more shopping, hospitals, schools in the area, and it is an amazing rental. The people who live there for a very long time, and they like the location because of all of the amenities around it. But for us, it was comforting because we knew what to expect. We knew how we had treated the house, so we had a good idea on what to expect from the tenant. But we also hired a property manager to help us with the 3 a.m. phone calls that we didn't want to take, right? And so that becomes an expense. You do need to calculate in your numbers, but if you do want to have someone else who gets the late night calls or deals with the maintenance, then you will have to account for that with the property manager. But when I came back from overseas and purchased additional real estate in another state, it was a rental. It had a lot of potential. It was previous owner had died and it was an estate sale. So the family was trying to get rid of the house. I got it at a really good price. And I actually pulled money together between me, a business partner, and others to be able to pay cash for that property. So you don't always have to use banks. Sometimes you can utilize your network and those who have idle cash lying around. And I just offered a better interest rate than money sitting in the bank account. And was able to take advantage of this deal and close pretty quickly. But after 2 years, I just realized that rentals give me headaches. I don't like toilets and tenants that much. And I wanted to find another way to invest in real estate, but I just didn't want to be a landlord anymore. So I asked around and did my research, and I discovered multifamily syndication. So those are the big apartment buildings where you'll have 200 units or 100 units. They're in one place, but actually investors will pool their money together to buy them, and then they will split the profits. And I also discovered hotel ownership. So I don't know if you know this, but most hotels, if they're not owned by a corporation, are owned by a group of investors. And when you purchase hotels, you're purchasing the real estate, the land that they're on, but you're also purchasing the business. So any income earned from people staying in the hotel is also divided amongst the investors in the form of profit, right? And so I saved my capital and then was able to do both of these types of investments. I purchased a hotel last year and then did a multifamily syndication with 354 doors, as we talked about this year. And that required capital. So once you have enough savings, if you don't want to do rentals, or you want to take that cash flow and then once it's at a certain level, invest it into something that's passive, this is an option. Because commercial real estate, once you invest the capital, you just wait for the return. So I get monthly cash flow from the multifamily syndication, and I get quarterly cash flow from the hotel. So and I made one investment. So I don't have to make sure people show up to work. I don't have to make sure somebody fixes the plumbing. I just participate in my investor calls. I monitor the performance of the properties from afar. And then I ask a lot of questions because obviously it's my investment and I do have to take ownership. But that's it. And so far, so good. I mean, again, these are riskier in that they are private investments, but this is what could come after rentals if you wanted to see what else in real estate you can do.
I like that. And I want to see what next. So for sure, Aquaria, you and me, we're going to talk more. So what about you, Danya? Anything that's maybe not real estate or rental?
Okay, great question. So to answer your question, because you said, do we think, should you invest in real estate? Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree that real estate is a very good investment. However, I always believe in diversifying. So I feel like it's good to have investment properties, but it's also good to have some sort of investments that you would have easily access to as well. Because life is, life. You never know what happens. You don't want to get stuck in a point in life where you'll have to sell a property because you need that $100, $200, $300, $500,000 cash, and you have to like sell it for less value than what you bought, or we never know. Market changes, right? So I think yes, you should invest in properties, real estate, commercial, just like how our other financial coach is saying as well. But I think diversifying is also very important. Like diversifying, right? You want to it has its own benefits, because not only you're taking advantage of different industries and different markets, but also you're keeping yourself safe in case something was to go wrong and you did cash, right? So that's what I would say. That's what I have to say. But other than that, I think everybody else already said the good stuff.
So diversifying where, how, when, where? What do
Great
you
question.
what products, or what how?
So one thing I've came across some people, and through my experiences, is that not everybody, like people do like properties investments, but not everybody is ready for it, or not everybody wants to risk it right away. So I think, pardon?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I can hear you. Okay. So I think having that diversify, like I think the best thing to do, honestly, like stocks are good, but then you also want to be careful with doing stocks. Because I've seen some people starting to do stocks on their own, like recently, especially a lot during the pandemic, because they make money from it. It's good. It's a very good decision for you to learn, but also, does it make sense to like grab 10,000 and put it into stock and you have no clue about? Because I've seen people doing that and then you lose it all. No, that doesn't make sense. So I think to begin with, maybe start small. I mean, mutual funds are a good option. Segregated funds are a good option, but the right type of mutual fund. So you have a mutual fund that only gives you 3% interest, and then you have another one that could give you 8%, 9%, 10% interest, right? So like last year was a very good year for me to see some of the portfolios that I've seen in the past and how they've done. Like some of them have done over 40% over the past 1 year. Some of them have done over 90% over the past 1 year. So does it necessarily mean that just because it's mutual fund, you can have good growth? No. So you have to be careful with where exactly you're putting your money. And to answer to your question, it's not a one size fits all. Like you need to see, where the person's risk is at. Like somebody's very conservative, somebody's medium risk, somebody's high risk. So you need to go over those things. And that's why I always talk about strategy, because if you have a proper strategy, which will help you have that suitable portfolio for you that is tailored for you and your needs, right? Because it also depends on when you need the money, for how long are you going to keep it, for how long are you invested. These are the small things that people don't pay attention to.
But even with the that type of planning also, that's where, what about the future? What about retirement? The one thing that I'm always curious about is self-employed, people or women such as yourselves. How are you planning for, because me working in corporate, they're telling us every month, they send us the pension. Oh, you're getting a pension. Self-employment, no, you don't, not so much. You're basically working for your retirement now. So now how does that go into, how do you basically start working into that? And then where do you add that, it's an insurance, where Aquena will be speaking of soon, but how do you work towards that?
So I'm a self-employed myself. I've been doing this for over 3 years and a half now. So I've had my experiences and I've had a very hard time becoming self-employed. Like I've gone through a lot of challenges because I jumped right away. Like I've made mistakes, and I've learned from it. But when it comes to planning, I feel like with self-employed people, it changes, right? Like it's not that, 1 year your income is something and then the other years could be different. So I think always updating your plan every year. But when I say a plan, like the plan should include everything. It should include your budget. It should include your emergency fund. It should include your insurance. It should include your retirement. It should include everything and everything, right? And that's really, what I'm focused on. So planning, strategy, then products, right? But how would you plan it? So like, I think the main important thing is to figure out your numbers. Like a lot of people have a goal to retire, for example, by 45, 50, sometimes 65, but they don't have a number. Like they don't know how much exactly they need in order for them to retire by the age they want, right? I call that a financial independence number or a FIN number, where you figure out how much exactly you need. So how much do you need to accumulate by 50, or whatever age you want to retire, in order for you to retire, right? Because as you said, we don't have a pension. So we're going to plan it for ourselves, right? And that's why it's so important to figure out your numbers. A lot of people don't know their numbers. So they're just moving along with life, not knowing which destination they're going to get to. Right? So we want to figure out our number. If your number is $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, okay. Now what do you need to do every month to get to that number? How long is it going to take you? Where should you put your money? So these are the stuff that comes with the planning. And that's why I say, sit down with someone that can have a plan for you first before anything else. Because if you have a right structure, the chances of you succeeding in your financial life is a lot higher than somebody not having a structure, from what I've seen. Right,
Now,
same thing with the
Enza,
pandemic.
now, Enza, thank you so much, Danya. Now, Enza and Meegan, anything to add to what Danya said?
We're talking about the investment side of it. Like
Well, investment, but retirement. So, how are you guys planning for retiring? Because you're not in the corporate world, you're not in the everyday. There's a pension calculated at the end of the year. How, as an investor or financial coach, self-employed, are you planning for retirement?
Yeah, so I can speak to myself and what I'm doing with my family. Okay, so I went from, like say 15 years in corporate, where I did build up an RSP, which in the US would be like your IRA. And I'm personally melting that down and withdrawing that money because I'm no longer employed as an employee. So it's at a very low tax bracket. I can take that money out. And I'm actually going to be starting to invest it in whole life dividend paying insurance policies, so that, I won't go into it in a great amount of detail because it's a very advanced strategy. Okay. But essentially,
Aquin is excited. That's her role. We're getting into that. Yes, good job. Yeah.
It's like a borrowing tool. I'm basically putting my RSPs. It'll be a borrowing tool for me, but then I'll have, life insurance for the future for my family. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing for me, it's really been like, I have a few properties in my portfolio, and I'm going to continue to add to that, over the next 10 to 15 years. And for me, it's like my properties are my pension, right?
That's
so
it.
If you think about it, like I buy a property today, like high level, it's worth $500,000. Okay. My tenants are going to pay all of my rent, pay all of the mortgage, pay all of the expenses. And in 25 years, when I want to retire, it's probably going to be worth $1 million. Okay. So, but someone else paid that whole property off for me. And yes, I do need to like answer some phone calls. And yes, I do need to go and like unclog a toilet or have my plumber unclog the toilet. Like there is some work involved, but for me, it's like work I'm happy to do, knowing that like in 25 years, I'll have an asset that I can sell, or I can, let's say I can sell it. And then I have $1 million that like I didn't really have to put a single penny into other than my initial down payment.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm doing.
Thank you so much. As you see, like life insurance. So let's go talk a little bit about it. Aquania, give us all the information that we need. Because to be honest with you, I have to say, our community usually don't take it serious. We see that a lot in our community, that we don't take life insurance serious. And if somebody pass away, you have contribution. Let's go contribute because they did not leave any legacy or anything for the kids and the family, and all it becoming a chaos. So this is a really, a big thing for our community.
No, I absolutely. One of the reasons I got into selling life insurance was to educate more communities of color about the importance. And honestly, I just got tired of seeing GoFundMe accounts for funerals for healthy people who could have had a very affordable life insurance policy had they planned for the possibility that they would die too soon. And most of us think this is something we can do later. but there are consequences to waiting. One, you may die before you actually get a life insurance policy. And two, you may become uninsurable due to health or other medical conditions that you never saw coming. And life insurance is cheapest the younger and the healthier you are, and you will never be younger and healthier than you are today, right? So I always recommend, especially if you have anyone who depends on you for income. So it's not just children. This is a spouse. These are aging parents. It could even be siblings. If anyone is depending on you for income, you need life insurance. And I also think you need life insurance outside of your job. Some people are fortunate enough to have life insurance as a benefit from being an employee. However, most of us know we change jobs often. We do not necessarily know we'll always have that job. And the older you are, again, the more insurance is going to cost. So by delaying this process, you're going to cost yourself money, right? So think about your life, who's depending on you, or who you would like to help in the event you died too soon, and use that as the basis of what you're planning for, or who you're planning for. And then think about some other factors. The way we do life insurance here is we estimate how much you need based on your contribution to your household and what you want to be paid for when you're gone. So I will look at someone's income and I will estimate 5 to 10 times that as the minimum amount of insurance they need, because I want the family to be able to live 5 to 10 years comfortably after you die with the same lifestyle. A lot of us do not want to have our children or even our spouses have to change the way they live just because they've lost an income. So you want to think about that. You may also want to think about what debt would you leave behind. In the US, all student loans do not die with you. There are some private student loans that will happily come after your family for the money that you owe them after you've passed. I hate to say that, but companies will do that. And depending on if you co-signed for someone else's student loans, so you're not the one who took the student loans, but say someone else helped you get them and you die, they may be responsible for that debt. So you always want to think about how much debt you're leaving behind. And then lastly, mortgage. So if you do have property and you would like for the property to be paid off when you pass, you can get a life insurance that will cover the balance on the mortgage. And then education. So education really applies to whoever's education you want to pay for. So I have 2 kids. I definitely want to make sure I have enough life insurance that it would cover their education if I was to pass before they went to college. So I've also included in my calculation education. So in our acronym is DIME. So debt plus 10 times your income plus balance on your mortgage plus E, education. The DIME number is the minimum amount of insurance you may want to consider for you to leave your family. But the strategy that Enza talked about is definitely one used a lot in the United States to supplement retirement income. It is a strategic way to use life insurance's cash value to provide yourself tax-free income in retirement. It's not a strategy for everyone, but it definitely is a strategy that works for certain people who meet the qualifications and are looking for additional ways to pay for retirement, especially if they don't have a pension or some other traditional income that might be coming their way. But at the end of the day, life insurance's primary purpose is to still provide for your family when you're not here. And we all can do that planning before it's too late. Thinking about it is not enough. We do need to take action. And then also working with professionals. So an estate attorney who knows the laws where you live and can make sure that your will and your trust are set up correctly and that you are doing everything you can to ensure that your family inherits as much as possible versus taxes or other fees eating away at your wealth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to add up on life insurance? And I know maybe Jittery, you have anything to add on this? or anything else too as well, you feel free.
I think, Jatiria?
Yeah, I think she's
I think she's
disconnected.
frozen.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I guess the next thing would be really to talk about because there's not only real estate, and one thing that I just found out about the REITs, and that's more, I don't know if that exists in the States. I don't mean to sound ignorant, but I don't know if anybody can touch on that, on investing in REITs. It's kind of, it's investing in real estate,
Yeah.
but not really. So
Yeah.
I just, if anybody can touch on that a little bit.
I invest in REITs, so I'm happy to give an overview of what it is. Real estate investment trusts, REIT, are essentially companies that invest in real estate, but they pull money together from different investors. They use that money to make large acquisitions. So that's your apartment buildings, your strip malls, or even hotels. And then they will, they're required in the US, I don't know about Canada, but they're required in the US that once they've paid all of their expenses, 90% of the profits have to be paid back to the investors. So that's where you would get a dividend, whether it's quarterly or monthly, that comes back to you because you are an investor in that real estate investment trust. There are private REITs and there are those that are traded on the stock market. So some of them you can purchase shares just like you would a share of Amazon or a share of Tesla. But private equity REITs are private and they will solicit or seek investors directly. And you can purchase shares in those as well, but they're just not publicly traded like stock. But they still have the 90% rule, which is once they've paid all their expenses, they do have to disperse the profits amongst the investors. So for someone who is even more conservative, so you don't want to do rentals because you don't want to deal with the day-to-day, you don't want to do flips because you don't want to deal with the renovations, you can use capital to invest in REITs. And when you invest in a REIT, you will, if it's profitable, you will get that return on a quarterly, monthly basis, but you're not involved in the day-to-day. So you have ownership in the shares that you've purchased, but you're not going to decide what color to paint the walls in the apartments or, you know, who's renting the office space, because they don't give investors that kind of granular decision power. So just keep that in mind. But it is a way to invest in real estate that normally just involves capital, and you can buy shares. So it could be even more affordable than having to save for a down payment to purchase a house.
So another great strategy. So thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. And I love what somebody was saying before, because it's like whatever you choose is going to be based on your comfort level and what resonates with you. But if you're looking for a more passive strategy in real estate, especially where we are in the GTA, one method that people use is pre-construction investments. So people will buy, like, for example, Meegan and I are dealing with this right now, where we sold a small development in Niagara Falls, okay? People that purchased it, most of them were investors. So what they did is they put the down payment down on this property a year and a half ago, okay? So based on the down payment, this particular property only offered and only required 10%. So it was very quite low in terms of a down payment. Then what they did is we had negotiated an assignment clause, what's called an assignment clause, into this contract for these people. So now a lot of them, not all of them, are assigning the contract. So they're selling the contract before they ever have to close on the property. And we just did a deal today, and I have to tell you, it was a year and a half with a minimal down payment, and this gentleman is almost making $200,000. Okay, so there is a way to be able to have a strategy in real estate which is more passive and where you don't have to do the day-to-day, and especially in this market where we are, where real estate goes up considerably. That's another strategy for people to consider And it's a very effective one.
Mhm. Another one that I use that I highly recommend, it's very passive and it's very secure, okay? And it's basically investing in private mortgages, okay? So I loan my capital out to basically people who can't qualify with a bank for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they're self-employed, maybe they're going through a divorce, like there's 101 different reasons why the people come there. But I have been doing it for 4 or 5 years now. I get 8 to 10% in return, annual return. And what I love about it is that my money is secured against the house, the real estate. So if this person decides to stop paying me, I'm foreclosing on their house and I'm going to have that asset and then can sell it. So it's totally secure. And it's very passive. Like I don't have to do anything. I just give them my money. And then, every month the interest payment ends up in my bank account. So that's another one that, people who want to invest, but again, they just want it very passive. You have a very busy corporate life, you have families, but you want to like have your money working hard for you, right? And building more equity for you than like say the 2% or 1% in the bank account. It's another great option. And we have like, I'll say private mortgage brokers really, that this is all they do for a living. So you can't just go to any mortgage broker. You really need to go to like someone who specializes in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? That's actually excellent. I didn't know that could be done. Anybody else has a comment just before we get into some of the questions that I've received? Okay, so there is one question here, and that's more for life insurance, but it's more, but anyways, so what would be the best company to purchase life insurance from?
I think it depends on a lot of factors. So I would actually recommend you work with a life insurance producer who's licensed to operate with where you are, because I am a broker, so I have several companies I can work with, but who I go to normally will depend on someone's health, whether or not they're going to pass a medical exam, whether or not they want to take advantage of the cash value strategy I talked about, or if they just want to get term insurance, which it expires, but it gives you a lot more money at a lower cost, right? So there's so many factors that could be taken in consideration. Once I know what someone's needs are, then I will shop around for the best rate. And I do recommend you consider that. I like not having loyalty to one company because I am independent. And I think that does make a difference in not only the service provided, but also the products people will offer you when that agent has options. So it's not that you shouldn't go with someone who only has one option, but definitely ask questions and make sure that they are providing you the best product for what you need. And I will also say this, if your budget is a tight budget, you may want to consider getting term insurance first at a lower cost and then converting it. So making sure that the policy can convert to permanent insurance. That's insurance that'll cover you for the rest of your life, but it tends to cost more. And so knowing and asking those questions will help you make the best decision, because that'll give you flexibility too. So you can purchase what you can afford today. And then as your income increases or your health changes, when you get a policy that can convert, you can normally convert without a medical exam, which will be invaluable if your health changes. So just ask to see if that's an option, and then and try to be as transparent as you can about your health. Because, for example, if someone tells me they smoke cannabis, I have to go to certain companies versus someone who doesn't smoke, right? And nowadays, smoking marijuana is more allowed in more states, but for life insurance companies, they're not all the same when they come to evaluating you for that, even if it is medical use and not just recreational. So that's why it's important to be transparent, because if I know that you smoke marijuana, whether medically or recreationally, there are certain companies I will never apply to you for, right? Because I want you to get approved. So just being transparent and understanding that the life insurance producer should be someone you can trust, should be someone who's going to put your best interests first. And that is how they're going to determine what type of insurance to recommend for you.
Okay. Oh, that's really good. So basically, they just need to look or ask their brokers if there's option for conversion, and also to starting with a term policy rather than a life policy. Okay.
If it's a budget, if it's a budget decision, yes.
Yes. Okay.
For some people, that is the best way to start.
Okay. Good. Anybody else has any comments or anything about, debt management, focusing on basically trying to pay down debt, for anybody, for the average woman out there, single, married, engaged, anybody has that one advice for that lady out there?
Do I have to just talk about that, or can I add something else about the life insurance side?
Go ahead.
Okay, good, because I didn't really say anything before, but
well, that was a question from the chat, right? That was a question from the chat. Somebody, one of the listeners was asking that. But my question is more about now in terms, because the whole premise of our webinar was the pitfalls of money, right? And so how can this lady, average woman, well, we're not average, we're sensational, but about that woman who can overcome that pitfall, especially in debt management?
I think there's like strategies that you can use in terms of paying off debt, right? Like there's debt stacking. There's different methods that you can use, like the snowball effect, like all the certain things that you can use to pay off debt. So I think that also goes back to what motivates a person more. So like for somebody to use a snowball effect, like they need to be more patient. They need to be, okay with something taking a little bit longer, because you're tackling each debt kind of, at a certain time, right? It's more smaller amounts. So you start from the smaller debt, pay off those first, and then you go to the bigger debt. Whereas somebody else is like, I have this $10,000 of debt and I want to get rid of that one first, because that's what motivates them. And if they do pay off that one, then they feel more achieved, and they do want to pay off the other one faster as well. So I feel like it's also based on people as well and how they process things in terms of paying off debt, but definitely putting on, I know I'm kind of repeating myself here, but like it's very important to come up with someone that, especially even with life insurance, that can help you with the strategy first before anything else, right? Because like if somebody doesn't know where you're standing in life and is just going to give you an offer to insurance, they may not give you the right product. They may not know what you can afford or not. And this has happened where people do end up buying insurances and they cancel after 5-10 years because they can pay it, right? Or 10-15 years because they can pay it. So what, I hope I'm saying her name right as well. Aquania, thank you. So what Aquania was saying as well, like I like what she was saying, that it depends on the person's need. Also, another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't pay attention to the life insurance side that I wanted to add is the exclusions. Like a lot of people don't pay attention to the exclusions, and then something happens and then they don't get paid out. And I'm like, what? But I've been paying so many years. So that is something else that a lot of people don't just kind of don't pay attention to it or don't know about it. So paying attention to exclusions as well. But paying off debt comes with a strategy. Like somebody may give you a strategy where you could pay off your debt maybe in the next 10 years. And then somebody else may be giving you a strategy where you could pay it off your debt 5 years sooner than 10 years sooner. So it really depends.
So are you talking about more, I don't know, we didn't really talk about it, but consolidation of debt consolidation as well? Do you guys usually advise your client for debt consolidation, or is like a no way is a bad way?
I mean, should we like put all of our debt into one? Like, I'm not talking about consumer proposal because that's different. No. But when it comes to putting all of the debt into one, it depends if it works the best for them, because it's not the best strategy for everyone. But it does work out very well for some people. It does put all of the debt into one interest rate, and they will end up paying only one interest rate instead of a couple, which saves them some money there, right? Avoiding paying too much interest. And at the same time, it does free up some money for them. So like I've came across clients sometimes where they were paying maybe 3,500 something, 2,500 into debt every month, just debt alone. And then when they put all of the debt into, together, that came down to maybe 1,500, and that did free up some money that they could have started to invest, right? So is it a good idea to put all of your debt into one? Depending on the person. Like I feel like with finances in general, you can't give you like an exact answer for everyone because everybody is different. Everybody's person is standing in a different type of situation financially. So it needs to be tailored for that person. Like that's what I think. That's what I believe in. But yeah, I'm not against it. I think it's a good idea for a lot of people.
Thank you, all of you guys. I think we are out of time. We're getting close to our end. I don't know if anyone want to add something in the end before we close. Are we good?
I just want to say one thing. First, I want to thank everybody for being here. And I want to thank the other panelists because I've just learned so much and I really appreciate everyone sharing so much. And I just I'm an uplifter by nature. And I just want to sort of leave people with this one last thought, which is, sometimes people can get very overwhelmed. I would really just challenge people to just sit down for an hour, dream of what your life could be, and believe that it's possible. Because when we talk about getting out of debt, well, people need to be moving towards something that makes sense to them, because it's almost like it's a discipline. Like, for example, it's like going to the gym. It's like a discipline, but by going to the gym, maybe I don't want to go to the gym, or maybe I don't like it. I do. I like to work out, but what it is that what's the benefit of you by doing this? So yes, there's discipline involved with being financially and fiscally responsible, but the reason that there's discipline is because it leads to what you're looking for. So I think when you can link the pain to the benefit, then people will be more inclined to do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really good.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Enza.
I'm going to add also something as well. Thank you so much. Same thing what Enza said. I think I've learned I've learned a lot as well. And I was like kind of taking notes at times. And I might even reach out to some of the panelists and actually ask them some questions as well, because why not? That's why we're here to connect.
That's the whole point. Yes.
That's the whole point. Yes. So I wanted to thank everyone. And just like how Enza said, she did say something that I really liked in the beginning, and it was talking about just starting. And that's what I want to leave everyone with. Yes, life can be overwhelming at times. Yes, your goals are important, but at the same time, just thinking so much and not doing anything is not going to get you anywhere. You want to start. A lot of people want to figure out the how before starting something, and that does delay stuff a lot. So I would suggest just do it and then figure it out along the way. Like, don't just sit down and do nothing. Maybe one day it will work out. And yes, anything and everything is possible. I 100% agree with that. And thank you so much for both of you guys to put this together. Like, I think a lot of people actually are going to be taking a lot of value from this.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Marie-Ange, take it away.
Okay, so I think we pretty much cover everything. We cover everything that we wanted to cover today. So thank you, ladies, for sharing your experience with us and helping us to empower women financially. And we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate you coming here today to help the community. So we hope that this webinar will change a life for one member of our community. And I know for sure that the conversation is going to continue. We're going to keep on, reaching out to you ladies to just hear more about what you guys are doing and how you can continue to help the community. So I thank you so much for today. And also, just to let you guys know, Leading Ladies is a very organization to empower women. So we usually do webinar in many different topics. And feel free to always reach out if you have interest in some, topic or initiative. We can always discuss. And I'm gonna just let my colleague Victoria to add something.
Sorry, I close to say Well, anyways, I just wanted to thank you all for participating and being there with us. And so just to touch on what Marianne said, yes, you know, we touch on everything to help out our community. The whole point of Leading Ladies Canada is, you know, our mission is to basically spread the information and spread the help that we can do to assist with members of our community, whether it be in mental health, wellness, fitness, finance. We're really there to assist. And so we will be having a 5th edition, of course, because money rules the world, you know, as much as we don't want it to be, but it does. And there's a lot of women, including myself, who I'm starting out, but a year ago, I had no money sense, no idea, until I started watching these webinars. So for sure, you know, we're hoping that we can do this again. And again, having panelists such as yourself to help our members of the community and our listeners as well. So thank you once again. We'll keep in touch, and I hope that we can continue to empower women out there as well.
Yeah, thank you for sure. I know for sure we're gonna keep in touch. Thank you.
So
Yes.
much.
Okay, have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.